Good to be back together. Violent student protests continued overnight. Well, student protests that became violent. Education Minister Christopher Pyne was heckled by an angry mob at Sydney University, upset over budget cuts. Mr Pyne was at the uni for a Liberal Club event. The protesters staged a protest outside the building, suggested they wanted to enter the building before a scuffle broke out with police and they were forced back.
For a spin-free perspective, let's check in with former Labor leader Mark Latham and former Liberal leader John Hewson. Good morning to you, gents.
Good morning.
Now, John Hewson, we'll start with you this morning because you're new to this. Are you surprised by the level of anger out there from uni students in response to the budget and in general, but we're seeing it very much from uni students?
No, look, I'm not surprised given the inequity of the budget and to be honest, I can't believe how much political capital they've burnt for so little gain. And I wonder how they'll handle the situation if the budget revenue numbers turn out to be weaker than predicted and the deficits seem to blow out. They'll have very little capacity to go back and do any more. I remember Phil Lynch's Razor Gang in the middle 70s went hard after the Whitlam profligate years and was unable to go back hard, and every budget of the Fraser years thereafter was focused on how do we cut expenditure, or do we have a temporary tax surcharge which was permanent a few months later. You know, it really destabilised the whole budgetary process, and I fear that we're in for that again.
Mark, you know, the protests probably can't last forever. The media eventually will find itself exhausted by the budget discussion. Does the government just sit and wait for this to end?
Well, that's a good point. I feel exhausted already. I also feel some sympathy for Chris Pyne. Imagine spending your Thursday night going to adjudicate a debate between some toffee-nosed Liberal Party students at Sydney University competing for the John Howard Cup. How exciting. What a thrilling night. Yeah. Poor old Pyne. I mean, he's lost the whole night out of his life. He'll never get back. And he's had to put up with all that violence and tomfoolery out the front. So we're getting a bit tired of this stuff, that's true. So the government will sit tight and they'll hope they can get back to quiet debate adjudications for the John Howard Cup. How exciting.
What's second prize, mate?
It hasn't
What's second prize? That's right. What's second prize? Couple of nights in jail.
Oh, stop. It hasn't just been street protests. There's been plenty of social media as well. God loves social media. And this entertaining music commentary.
Buying new fighter jets, yet cutting out healthcare. Axing the funding for Indigenous welfare. Funding school chaplains to brainwash our kids. These are a few of his favourite fibs.
Well, it was always going to happen. John, how much pressure at this point would Tony Abbott be under from his own party such a short time into his first term?
Look, I don't think he's under much pressure. I think he's pretty surprised, though, to be honest. I mean, he promised us no surprises. Little did he know the big surprise was going to be his. I think he's got a long way to go. He's got to tough it out, as Mark says. He's got no room to manoeuvre from here. The Senate process will just, I think, extend all this uncertainty and all this disruption. Be very hard for them to get back to government, but I think at this stage, I mean, Tony's got the backing of the party and he'll just have to tough it out.
Yes. It doesn't seem like there's any they're standing pretty strong, the government, at the moment. Let's talk about that wink, OK? When grandmother Gloria told Tony Abbott on Talkback Radio she had to make ends meet by earning extra money as a phone sex worker. Now Gloria has another budget message for the PM. Of course, the media has tracked Gloria down, as you thought they would. Take a listen to this.
Have a bit of a think about how it's actually affecting ordinary people like me and people who are heaps worse off than me. It's not a fair budget and you're not a fair man.
Mark Latham, do you think the PM... Well, what do you make of that wink first? We haven't spoken to you since the wink happened.
Well, I think you've got to have a little bit of understanding of a politician in a radio studio. You don't know who's calling in, who are these people. Gloria apparently is not her real name. The whole notion of an old chook on a sex line is just absurd. If it had been me, I wouldn't have winked. I just would have broke up with laughter. It's just ridiculous. You know, I think he showed great restraint just to wink. He should have had a big belly laugh about it. Who is this?
I think you can have a few Glorias on your back now, Mr. Latham.
Mark Latham, are you
what sort of people get off rigging up Gloria? I mean, it's the theatre of the absurd. It shouldn't be taken seriously, and She's not Gloria, and apparently she's a political anarchist. How many anarchists are out there in mainstream Australia? None whatsoever.
None of that invalidates the genuine nature of her complaint.
Oh, come on, Andrew. If we're going to get into the business of taking someone seriously at her age on a sex line, aren't there some genuine Australians who can talk about issues in the budget instead of a pseudonym Gloria, a political anarchist trying to make out that she works on a sex line of a night? I mean, you know, there's real mums and dads out there worried about the budget. Let's talk to them.
She's a real grandmother too, who's
Well, do you know that? You don't know Gloria? Nobody knows.
They've got a rundown.
Andrew, how many anarchists have you met in your life?
I spent 9 years at uni, so a few.
Andrew would have been one of those ones
They're at uni, mate. They're at uni. They weren't some old chook on a sex line. You know?
Stop.
Let's get real.
We love old chooks here. Mark Latham, thank you for your input, as always. John Hewson.
Okay, thank you.